All right, welcome back to round number 3 of 4 here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon for our Modern Mondays night. This is Travis Cooper from Portland Paper hanging out with,
Justin Hadley.
and yeah, you got some insight onto this matchup.
I do. The Martyr Proc pilot, James Hadley, is my twin brother. I'm very familiar with him and his playstyle and this deck.
Twin brother and housemate currently. Is
Yes,
that
current
true?
current
Yeah.
housemate. He does currently live with me. Just moved over here, but it's like there's a good chance that I will be able to read his mind and I can tell you guys everything that he's thinking in this match. So it's probably going to work out great.
Awesome. So we have Martyr Proc facing off against Grixis Whir here, and so for those unfamiliar with what Martyr Proc is doing, do you want to give like a quick rundown of like the key cards on the deck?
Yeah, sure. So Martyr Proc is it's essentially based off of like obviously the two namesake cards, Martyr of Sands, a common from Cold Snap, and Proclamation of Rebirth, a rare from Dissension, which has a very interesting. There's Martyr of Sands. Reveal X white cards. You gain 3 times X life. So there's possibilities of gaining upwards of you can gain 21, you can gain 18 life off of this card very, very, very easily, enabling Sarah Ascendant to become a 6/6 flying lifelink for 1 mana most of the time. And then Proclamation of Rebirth is a card with a it's cast. It's a 3 CMC card. You can return 3 cards for mana cost 1 or less to the graveyard of the battlefield, or you can forecast it, which is a very strange effect to bring 1 back for free during your draw step.
Yeah, it feels like Forecast is almost in the like realm of like the Arcane and Splice
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
have. Like, oh, this reveal a card from your hand, get an effect, the card stays in your hand.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those effects that I think I can't remember who. I think it was Maro's idea to create it, and he really, really liked the effect. But the only stipulation of it staying as an effect is that if all the cards were really overcosted, because otherwise it is a very powerful effect. If this was more reasonably costed, it would be very, very easily abusable.
Alright, we have a mulligan for Grixis, and it looks like Martyr Proc is keeping the opening hand.
Yeah, and Martyr Proc's deal is just to grind out the game for as long as possible, which I actually believe will make this a good matchup for Grixis War. If I do have to, since it's
Alright, we got a little Sherlock Holmes coming down, clue token.
yeah, I do believe this is going to be a good matchup for Grixis War. They're both looking to play the long game, and I think a lock could come quite easily.
Are there ways in Martyr Proc to destroy an ensnaring bridge in the main deck?
I do not, off the top of my head, I do not believe so. It does play a suite of like one-ofs, kind of like a couple one-of planeswalkers, one-of sweepers like Hallowed Burial.
Okay.
It's better against the creature-based strategies.
Okay. Yeah, I remember playing it a couple of years ago at a GP, and they had an O-ring in the deck, and they would recur with Emeria, Sun Titan,
Hmm.
kind of loop that.
Yeah, I think it does play a one of Oblivion Ring, but sometimes that's actually not always in the main board.
All right, Welding Jar, Mox, Spyglass. For Chris, we get a ETB trigger with a Spyglass, and James revealing a hand of Path, Ghostly Prison, Avacyn, Wrath of God, and a Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not sure how many of these cards would have been in his main board, but or in his opening hand, but it's a lot of stuff that's not great in the matchup.
Yeah, good against creatures, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Play open, but I have a really hard time remember all the cards in that.
And I'm curious what got named off that Spyglass. Didn't quite hear.
How much?
Ghost Quarter. There we go.
Because you can't name Clue. It's not a card.
And perhaps James thinking about if he wants to save the mana for drawing card off Clue or just deploying a Ghostly Prison.
You know exactly what you're doing, but I'm gonna play this because it feels safe. Go.
James comments that he feels safe when he plays a prison. Does not quite know what Chris is up to yet.
What is the win condition of Grixis War?
They're going to recur artifacts with Academy Ruins
Right, okay.
and not lose. And they'll mill you out with the new Reveal eventually.
Okay.
There's a...
So it's very similar. That's what I thought. It's like what Lantern evolved into.
There's a Crucible of Worlds in the main deck, and that when you reveal it, is win condition.
I imagine the Aether Grid in the sideboard, potentially. Which would be very good in this
I
matchup.
think it turns into Tesserator after sideboard a lot of times, or
Okay,
a couple
yeah,
different
right.
kinds of Tesseract
Agent of
Planeswalkers.
Bolas.
Yeah.
Very good card.
And
That's the original version of the deck that I saw.
yeah, Sai is also hanging out in the sideboard as well, so it's
he's
doing a
such
little
a
bit of
good card.
KCI impersonation after board, and we have a Chalice on 1.
Locks out the path in his hand. And a lot of things in the deck. Thraben Inspector, Martyr. Though he can still recur things with Proclamation if they get countered.
Yeah, so you might just cast through a Chalice just to be able to recur it with Proc. And Chris with 1 card left in hand, but does have that Inventor's Fair to tutor up an artifact.
It's not a card, right?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Just cracking the clue and passing the turn.
And Chris gaining a life off the Inventor's Fair trigger, drawing a card. Seems like we might be settling down here, like
Yep.
getting comfortable.
Yeah.
We don't have the lazy boy in the coverage booth. But yeah, Teleria chat comments about Teleria West, and yeah, it is a very awesome card. In this deck, it gets you that Academy Ruins, the EE Chalice, a lot of good targets there.
Welding Jar, Mox Opal. A lot of stuff. Flurry West is Transmute is a very powerful effect.
It will be super fun. Ranger Wheels?
All right, Ranger Vios gonna tutor up some cards that are gonna probably get countered by Chalice.
I'm gonna crack this.
Sure. Yep.
And a little shortcutting here. Chris is cracking the Inventor's Fair. and
Probably
is
for a
gonna get
bridge. No.
Is there anything better?
I think he might be looking for something. Oh, Bottle Cloister. I love that card.
Yeah, that is a pretty sweet card in the deck, especially the interaction with Bridge.
Yeah. Sees a lot that interaction sees legacy play as well.
Read that again? Yeah, I remember I built a blue, red, white.
We are getting the Bottle Cloister.
Yeah. Just prepping for that bridge lock.
Can we pull up that one on screen here? Because that's an interesting card.
Yeah, so basically draw 2 cards to win.
Draw 2 cards a turn and it protects from hand disruption.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that your turn?
It's also great with bridge, which Chris isn't saying, but he doesn't want James to know that.
Untap.
So get to draw 2 cards a turn, basically, and your Ensnaring Bridge is always turned on.
And Chris had a healthy 17, so definitely not afraid of not tutoring up the bridge right now.
Yeah, Bottle Cloister is so sweet in that you get to draw extra cards, but then don't have cards in your hand with Ensnaring Bridge. I mean, that's just
Broken.
Yeah.
It feels like cheating.
It is. It does feel really good to blow up a Bottle Cloister on your turn when your
Yes, it
opponent has a bunch of cards under it, though.
Yeah.
So.
And they only get to draw one on their turn.
Could see getting a little bit aggressive, just casting these into Chalice, hoping that you draw the Proclamation.
Yeah, it's a situation where forecasting Proclamation is okay, but if you have 3/1 CMC creatures in your graveyard, casting it is perfectly okay. The deck only usually plays 1 to 2, so.
Another Welding Jar. Looks like we have a main deck Damping Sphere hanging out in there. Another Spyglass.
Witchbane Orb.
Another Spyglass.
Get some additional information.
James thinking about flashing in. Avison.
I believe he did. He did flip it over in his hand.
Sure.
That's a big pile of ones.
Yeah.
We got, let's see, 2 inspectors, a martyr, a path, and 2 Saracens. And naming Ghost Quarter again with that Sorcerer Spyglass.
And Sarah Ascendant is another card with multiple art printings, and I do like the Iconic Masters one more than the original.
So James is putting a clock on Chris. He's going to have to draw that Ensnaring Bridge at some point.
Yeah, and hopefully he will. And that's
You're hoping against.
well, no, I'm saying he's hoping that.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't say he, but but he is. Oh, and he did. It's whiteboarded. It's the only one.
Oh, it's so ugly, but beautiful at the same time.
It is, and this is when the dream is dead, potentially.
Oh yeah, so Chad asking about Whir's win conditions. Yeah, the Spell Bomb can kind of win you the game, but usually it's faster to mill someone out with the Ibn Rivulet and Crucible of Worlds, etc. But yeah, I mean, it has a lot of these toolboxy artifacts that are power level kind of low individual cards, but have a lot of utility, and if you can recur them, will win you the game or lock your opponent out of being able to play the game.
And James went ahead and cast 3 of his creatures into the chalice.
Seems like
into
the
void.
correct move.
Yeah, for sure. It's throwing them into the void.
That Oblivion Ring would be a pretty sweet draw if it is in the deck, because Welding Jar is not going to protect against that.
Yeah, I do believe it. I do believe it is, if I remember his list correctly. And
Okay.
also, I feel like James would definitely concede if he didn't have any outs to this.
Yeah, it feels like if you're playing a long grindy deck that you might end up drawing games. You
Yeah.
definitely know will concede if you can't win, so you can hopefully win the next ones. All right, the mill plan is live.
James is flipping each one of those with hesitation, hoping to not see the Oblivion Ring hit.
Yeah, because that kind of wins the game unless Chris could Whir for another bridge.
Yeah.
But can't do it during James' turn because Chris won't have a hand.
Worrying for 4, so not another. I mean, I guess he
that
could
or
get
less,
bridge.
yeah.
Yeah. But he has something in mind.
Crucible? Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is how the deck wins.
It feels better than Lantern. Something about not being able to see the top card of your opponent's deck.
Yeah, even if you're not going to win the game, at least you don't know you're just going to draw lands for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Or like, I feel like people that haven't played against Lantern a lot, it's very frustrating because you feel like you have outs, but you really don't.
Right, yeah, exactly. I think it's just the waiting game now until we see the Oblivion Ring hit the graveyard or it be cast.
I guess even if it does hit the graveyard, you do have the... do you know
True.
if James is playing Sun Titan?
He is.
Okay.
He is. I believe he's playing it. I believe it's a 2 of. So here's a few.
You want this to resolve first? This is upkeep as well. Chris, do you want me to draw off this first, or you want to...
No.
Alright, draw off that, and upkeep Glimmerboard?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, we get a Field of Ruin activation for James. Maybe, I feel like James might not know what the contents, like all the contents of Chris's deck, and I'd be sort of tempted to save a field for a Academy Ruins, but it's looking pretty rough regardless.
Yeah. It's also one of those situations where you're thinking, "Where's my Oblivion Ring? If I shuffle it, maybe I'll put it in the right spot," but you don't know where it's at.
Yep, is it gonna? No, nope.
Nope.
Million?
Any sweet permanents in the graveyard? Oh, there's Sun Titan. We're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we have 5 plans hanging out?
Yeah, you milled one. I'm good.
Yeah, that's gonna be that. Okay. Untap, escape, draw for that. Soft turn.
Yeah.
And do you think we could get up a Maria Skyruin? So another win condition that this Martyr Proc list has is to just develop your land, get into the very late game, and then have Maria the Skyruin start doing some pretty busted things.
Yeah, and that could have been a reason that James used the Field of Ruin so proactively to try and get more planes on the battlefield rather than the Field of Ruin.
That makes sense. Especially if they're going to start to go to the graveyard and get milled.
Yeah. I would be tempted to use the Ghost Quarters for the same reason, but...
You can't use them?
Oh, right. Yep, Spyglass. It's named twice.
Thank you for helping.
You're welcome. Not a problem.
Sorry for this hassle.
No, that's fine.
A million.
Sure.
And get another mill. Well, still don't see an O-ring. And that's a lot of cards.
You think he's playing Dredge?
I kind of do just want to see the O-ring off the top.
Yeah, after a mill would be... But Chris has the bobble, so he'll get to know if it's on the top.
Yeah, I guess that would be a little bit salt in the wounds there for it to literally be on top right
Yeah.
now.
Nope. Ranger.
Then moved,
Maybe some interesting math with playing Ranger, seeing the amount of cards that you have left in your library. How many turns you have left?
Yeah.
Do you pull out cards that aren't
Yeah, it's
O-ring, or yeah, lots interesting decisions.
Yeah, and the other interesting decision here is Chris cast the Engineered Explosives on 2.
And it's
What just happened?
I'm unsure. Seems like maybe it was countered with. I don't know how Chalice would counter that, but it doesn't matter because we get a concession and go into game number 2. So, sideboard wise, I imagine white has a fair amount of disenchant effects, and probably Stony Silence would be a card. If you're just playing mono white, I imagine you're jamming like 2 to 3 Stony Silences.
It's possible. My brother actually dislikes that card.
So you know the dirt.
There's a possibility that he might have it in the sideboard because it is a great card, but he has mentioned to me on multiple occasions that he's not a fan of it.
There's a lot of stuff to take out, but also you do have to consider that Chris is going to bring in, I imagine, Sai, especially against a creature deck. So keeping in some of those board wipes might be relevant. I want to board out all of your removal.
Oh, I heard Chris mention 1 for a tax effect, but I think there was so many permanents on this side of the field. I think I missed the detention sphere myself, or not detention sphere, the sphere resistance. No, it's not sphere. There's so many spheres in Magic.
Sphere. Stones.
Yeah, spheres and stones. Although sphere resistance is similar in that instance. So.
Damping sphere.
Damping sphere. That's the one.
And not to note, not dampening sphere,
Mhm.
which seems to be the common pronunciation of that. Damping is to reduce vibrations. Does not have to do with water or moisture.
Although it would be interesting if it were dampening sphere and and the sphere was just spraying water around everywhere.
I think there might be a dampening stone. Is that a? Am I just making that up, or is that an actual
There's
magic
there's
card?
damping matrix, but that's not dampening. Oh no, I think there is a dampening stone.
I feel like there's a dampening something. Oh no, no dampening stone. Failed on the card fetcher for that one.
So I'm thinking,
Looks like my salary is going to be docked. Don't make any money anyways. Dampening pulse. Okay, that's something.
Yeah.
card is great and limited.
Yeah, and you drew it. So.
I definitely had played limited decks with that. That I put that card in multiple copies in the main deck.
Hmm. So what do you think Chris is bringing in the sideboard?
No, it's
You're probably your alternate win conditions. You're assuming your opponent's going to board out removal, like Path to Exile, etc. So I bet you're bringing in like Tezzeret and Sai, and maybe taking out some cards like Witchbane Orb that aren't going to matter.
Yeah.
It's a lot of superfluous artifacts. Damping Sphere also seems not very important.
Seems like it might hurt Chris. Well, I don't know about hurt Chris more, but I feel like with Chalice countering most of the things in Martyr Proc, the damping sphere is not really going to do a whole lot.
but it's still like samey, very samey. Yeah.
All right, players shuffling up, seeing if we like the 7. And
So
got the bridge, got a spell sky, got
think
a
he has the cloister,
spell
too.
ball. Are there lands? Seems
No.
like that might have been the. I was like, oh, that hand's sweet
That
because
hand's-
it's all spells.
Yeah, hands with their lands are usually the ones with the best stuff.
Better, this deck can do more things with mono red, but I would like to do something earlier.
Right.
Okay, yeah, chat called shot there on the spell skites. Definitely came in after board.
Yep. How's
All right, gets a 1-drop in under Chalice.
Yeah, usually Martyr Proc does not want to deploy Martyr of Sands on turn 1 because they don't want it to get killed, but James, knowing what he's up against, Martyr Proc's getting in there.
All right, Squadron Hawk going to get some more Hawks, leaving 1 left in the library, so you don't have to discard to hand size. Nope, no. Are we going for 3? Would that be a discard to hand size? So we're on the play. We played 1, 2, 3. Nope. I think you're exactly at 7.
And the spell skite.
Flying over. 1 point of damage there, and tap land, Squadron Hawk.
James
Passive turn?
choosing not to search. This would be a great situation for before the bridge came down to get the well, now the bridge is down, so Sarah Ascendant's not great after gaining a bunch of life, but the Squadron Hawk is still alive.
And we have a Stirrings for a jar. Just want to have 0 cost cards when you got the bridge out to hopefully play out your hand over the next turn or 2.
Also protect for any possible disenchant effects that James could be bringing in. But Ancient Stirrings, a very powerful card, not only in this deck, but in a lot of decks. People have been talking about wanting it banned for a long time.
Which card is that?
Ancient Stirrings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the best cantrips in Modern. I was like, oh, what card are you talking about being banned? Because I see a Mox Opal and an Ancient Stirrings
Yeah.
on the other side of the table.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of redundancy to, if you have a removal effect on James's side, we've got the Spell Skite, we've got the Welding Jar. It's going to have to be something pretty specific, or a combination of 2 or 3 cards to deal with this Ensnaring Bridge.
Is there anything that James could cast that would just... I don't think there is anything that would just deal with it.
Oh, I think they're... Let's see. I don't play a lot of EDH, but there's some 5 mana artifact wipes.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
this is my life.
Eat, sleep, breathe this deck. This deck looks fun, to be perfectly honest.
It's really fun, but a little painful for.
Well, so is this. This deck is painful for your opponent.
Yeah,
It's like the
yeah.
same sort. This is a prison deck. Most people
Yeah,
don't see it as one,
Yeah,
but
it is.
Yeah.
Especially
Players chatting about both playing prison decks. All right, we got a Whir coming up.
I'm gonna work.
4 Bottle Cloister.
I imagine that's the card.
I think he said it.
This deck does seem pretty sweet.
Yeah. I'm glad Word of Invention finally found a home.
Yeah, it felt like the Lantern control decks were playing it for a while. They adjusted to be more blue based, but then this Grixis Whir deck has kind of supplanted that in like metagame percentage. I haven't seen, you know, classic Lantern control in quite a while.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw it is when I'm drawing a blank on his name. He won the Pro Tour with it.
Sam Black played it a fair amount, and let's see, Sam Black, LSV.
Um,
Call it Grixis Whir. I feel like that's just wrong. That's what I was saying, call it.
Luis Salvato. That's who won the Pro Tour with Lantern Control, which is very impressive to watch. I'm curious to, do you have any insight as to why Whir supplanted the Lantern?
Oh, you know,
It's not in here, so I'll tell you what it is. It's walking ballista.
I'm unsure. Maybe it's just,
Like if I had my walking ballista,
it feels like Whir can kind of win faster than mill for a turn, with the Crucible of Worlds and the Bottle Cloister drawing more cards. You know, I'd have to talk to someone that's played a lot of reps with both decks. Like, on the
Right.
face of it, I can't like necessarily state why in a certain metagame one's better than the other. Yeah, I'm unsure. Maybe chat has some opinions about why Whir is more popular now instead of Lantern. Also, it could have to do with how it's easier to mill with
If New
if you roulette on MTGO. It's like less clicks than if
True.
you're all your mill rocks.
It's also, there's a chance, like, I feel like this 4-colored Whir deck might have more selection, less dead draws, because drawing multiple Lanterns and multiple Codex Shredders is not optimal.
Okay, it looks like Chad is also mentioning that Chalice, and that makes a lot of sense. If
That is
Chalice
true.
is really good, then this deck seems like better positioned. And it does feel like Chalice right now it is really good, especially with all the Arc-like decks. I even saw in this most recent Mythic Championship qualifier online, I don't know what acronym they're using nowadays, there's a blue-white control list that's playing 4 Hieroglyphic Illuminations, no 1 mana cards. We got all the Terminus and Planeswalkers, Simian Spirit Guide, and a package of Academy Ruins, Chalice of the Void, and Engineered Explosives. So, when blue-white control is playing Chalice, that's saying something.
Yeah, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that Chalice is probably pretty okay. I love Chalice, so I'm okay with that.
All right, we've got some Planeswalkers. We got Chris has a lot of card draw right now. This is kind of a ridiculous match to be watching on camera. feels like there are more permanents on the battlefield, I think, than we've seen in any of our other matches today.
Yeah, that is true. It's definitely not a matchup you see every day.
Okay, there's the Crucible of Worlds. And how big is this fireball going to be?
Pretty big.
Target player loses X life, yeah.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yep.
I think
So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Artifacts.
Pass turn.
Crap.
Yep.
All right.
Chris's Tezzeret should be on 5. It slipped from 4 to 6. I do believe.
Okay. Well, let's see. Might probably makes a difference.
Yeah, he might notice. I don't. I mean, it's with bottle cloister and bridge, it's looking pretty grim at this point anyway. But it is.
That's something we should probably correct the
Yeah.
players on. So I'll let you, since you have you know both of them, I'll let you go catch that one.
Okay, sorry. I don't think you did.
Yeah, Chad is curious if Mono Red Prison is good right now. I would say the advantage that something like Whir has is that you have a bunch of pieces that do various kind of specific things that are super good in certain matchups, but you don't necessarily want to draw them, and you can just find them with Whir. Where Mono Red can sometimes be sweet with being able to do Chalice and Blood Moon, but sometimes that doesn't matter to your opponent, and you don't have any real ways to find cards.
Yeah, I agree with that. Four color Whir has like what they have. Not only do they have Whir, they have Stirring, Starry West, and Adventurers Fair to also search for pieces. Mono Red has Chandra to uptick and hopefully hit something useful. So Blood Moon and Chalice feel great together, but Whir is probably just more consistent. But I do love Mono Red Prison.
Yeah, I root for that deck, and deck that's just playing like one color in Modern, I'm like, yeah, you've you've made some sacrifices, and I'm gonna root for your team. Plus, they play lots of ridiculous cards. I mean, they're playing like Planeswalkers and Dragons, and yeah.
And Koth, which is just like the only thing that Koth is played in. Well, that's usually the Scred variant, but I've seen Mono
Kind of
Red.
overlapping a little
Yeah.
bit.
This is my wife.
Yep. I was not ready for this in sideboard at all. Usually I am, but like I felt like just artifact stuff kind of fell off.
Okay, so I feel that we're just going for the Tezzeret Fireball for Chris. That's going to be the win here.
Yeah. I'll make an emblem.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Gideon Emblem deployed.
If you could get that Ensnaring Bridge off the battlefield.
That's a lot of spell skites.
It is.
One more artifact. Yep. Twice. So I need 10, so I need one more artifact.
All right, can James gain any life?
He does have a Martyr out,
We got 2 cards in hand?
I think. So gain. Oh,
Oh,
wow.
no.
A lot more than 2.
Untap.
Upkeep, I'm gonna before bottle close, I'm gonna Field of Ruin. You're both are going void. No, just a going void and Spire.
All right, Glimmer Void and Spire, Field of Ruined. And both players going to search for some basics.
You wanna?
Sure. Yeah, let's give him those two. I didn't realize I had 3.
Triple Field of Ruin.
Wow.
Oh, you have enough mana.
Go big or go home.
Well, darn. I only have 2 lands.
Also, sweet basic lands on your brother's side.
They are German as well. I do have that insight.
Should not have played that shot.
Are you a fan of foreign lands?
I am. Specifically foreign Ice Age snow-covered lands, because they are extremely hard to get.
Think I have a way out.
They're not extremely hard, but they were very limited, and Ice Age was the very first set that Wizards actually printed in a foreign language.
Okay. Wow.
Play that.
Full of facts today here. Got the right person in the booth.
I've got I know a lot of weird stuff about Magic.
It's like you've worked in a game store before.
It is.
I'll play Martyr of Sands.
Maybe this one.
12.
All right, we got an ultimate of Tezzeret in response. We have an activation of Martyr. James is getting 12, going to 32, and then going to lose.
And then you lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So
22.
22.
So that's 10.
Going down to 10.
This is
And,
You know what?
and the Emiria is almost online too, so there's a chance that he could just keep looping that.
Okay. Did you play this with 0?
Sorry. Play that for 2.
Got him. Bluffed that activation.
Such a pass. Play that for one.
Okay, we do have, maybe we can talk about organizational skills here.
Yeah.
And take a look at both players on our left and right. Each have similar amount of permanents in graveyard, on the battlefield, etc. You know, your brother is very, like, we have
meticulous.
zones, and we have, you know, all the multiple copies of the same card are like the same distance apart from each other. It's good organizational skills here.
Chris does usually play Infect, as far as I know that that's his pet deck, which has much. I would say I don't know if it's
Maybe
a lot.
4
I don't know if it's a lot
permanents?
less permanents, but it definitely has less permanents on the battlefield.
Looking forward to be like, hey guys, hey friends, look at my deck that I found.
Why not?
Why not? Let's have a crazy board state.
Yeah, right. I'll make.
So how many planes does James have?
A stack.
I think he has. I mean, Emiria could.
It's 7, right?
Emiria does trigger on 7. I think he might have 6.
Untap. Draw.
I think this is the most amount of permanents we've had on a match on coverage, perhaps the entire time we've been streaming.
Let's uptick this.
I'm kind of intrigued. Well,
I'm gonna make this game go to times.
Right. And explosives seems like that's gonna get rid of some things. We got that chalice hanging out.
yeah.
Chalice on 1, 0, and 2.
The explosives on.
Yeah.
Chalice on 1. Or sorry, engineer explosives on 1.
Okay.
Does
2
let's
blue
see.
to get around the chalice on 1.
But we have a chalice on 2,
And then
right? No? No, we have an E on 2.
E on 2.
Okay, okay. There we go. Chalice on 0 and 1.
then
This is stupid.
All the artifacts just blending together.
because reasons.
Can you play it for 0?
Play it with the colorless. And then
Ah, okay. Yep, countered. There we go.
you're good.
Some interesting communication going on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. This is what happens when there's lots of things to keep track of. This is quite very different than our
Oh,
first match this evening.
Yeah, we're starting to loop the Martyr with Emiria.
Yeah.
Doing heavy time in prison.
No. Sure.
So both of these decks can be well tuned to grind games out, and not lose to decking.
So does James play the land where you can put a card on the bottom of your library?
Yeah, he has 2 of them out as Misspell Planes.
Misspell Planes?
They're both
Okay.
they're both foreign, but they are both on there. Which
Okay.
2 of the 7 planes that are triggering Emiria.
Okay, because that definitely interacts with the mill your opponent out to win the game plan here. Because milling only works that you lose a game when you draw a card and you don't have a card left in your library. Yep, and Academy Ruins is Field of Ruins, and there's so much stuff on the battlefield. Is there a Crucible on Chris's side yet?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I ulted Tezzeret, and then he gained, I don't know, 12 life.
I'm gonna pay 1 and sacrifice Martyr.
Yes.
So 4, gain 12.
Yes. 22.
And then I'm gonna pay 3 and play Proclamation and return this to play.
Yep.
Okay, James going up to 22
I'll get ya.
I'll get you.
is able to cast a 3-drop.
Cast a Martyr for 3.
Draw.
Sure.
It's a race. It's a race. Who's better, Martyr of Sands or Tezzeret Agent of Bolas? Who's better at killing versus gaining life?
This game is pretty much a fingers of the whole game of Magic.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
ca-
this is-
I'm okay. I'm really trying to think.
Got him.
Okay, we got a spyglass here.
Okay.
I mean, he has an
I imagine we hadn't seen one, but I imagine
Yeah.
he kept it in his deck.
I'm trying to get my way to get rid of it, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Spyglass.
I'm gonna sack this in response.
Yep.
Show 3, gain 9.
Yep.
All right, James going up to 31.
9.
Yeah, 31. 31.
Oh, we had the O stone or O ring. All the O's.
So that Tezzeret is currently going to hit for 28
The thing.
and Aether Grid.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on there. James definitely like seeing that there wasn't a window for victory. Defeat was inevitable through multiple means and extends a hand. I think that was kind of a sweet match.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it, and they both definitely, despite how ridiculous it was, definitely enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, we're all here to enjoy ourselves. So I think that was good.
That was amusing.
Yeah.
Definitely not the matchup I think that each deck was really tuned to necessarily beat. But Chris has just generally like good answers to a lot of different things in the deck, where James is a little bit more narrow to play against creature decks or mid-range decks, I would say.
Which, fortunately for James, that's most of what the format is. It's very good against a lot of the decks in Modern, but
yeah, it feels like Martyr Proc is also even pretty decent against control. Your late game is just with Emeria hard to interact with.
oh yeah, Martyr Proc in a way kind of operate. It's not like a control deck per se, but it definitely kind of, I don't know, it grinds just about as hard.
It's a mix of like prison and control almost, but
I do enjoy the deck, but it does struggle against combo decks. That is one of its biggest pitfalls. It is, like you said, tuned for the creature-based mid-range matchups.
all right. Yeah, so chat was mentioning that there were lots of spell skites to redirect with Oblivion Ring. And, in those situations, especially with that complicated board state going on and players missing a lot of different triggers, I kind of would have been tempted just to cast it with a very straight face and, like, point to the card that you wanted to get exiled.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works just like confidence.
Yeah.
But okay, that's going to do it for us for round number 3. We have one more round of Modern here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon, and we will return in a couple minutes.